Welcome to O'Reilly Hospitality Management's Safety Compliance video. Today, we'll walk you through essential safety topics that ensure you and your colleagues can work in a safe and secure environment. Our goal is simple: to set you up for success by fostering a culture of safety starting from your very first day. We'll equip you with the tools, knowledge, and resources needed to perform your job safely. While you will receive an abundance of information in this video, it's important that you communicate with your supervisor if you have questions about any of this material. In this training, we'll cover crucial safety topics that will ensure you are aware of safe practices at work. Topics we will cover include active shooter, slips, trips, and falls, fire prevention, safe lifting, lockout, tagout, and electrical safety, cuts and burns, hazard communication and chemical safety, bloodborne pathogens, personal protective equipment, and our OHM emergency action plan. Let's dive in. Active shooter. An active shooter event is unpredictable and requires swift action. Recognize the warning signs, such as drastic changes in behavior, increased talk of violence, or severe mood swings. Stay vigilant and report any concerns to your supervisor or human resources. Common traits that may be indicative of potentially violent behavior could include any of these warning signs. Take a few moments to review some of the items on this list. It's important to note, this list only presents common signs of violent behavior. It is neither comprehensive nor to be used as a diagnostic tool. In the event of an active shooter situation, remember the key response strategies: run, hide, and fight. Plan your route before you move, assist others if possible, and follow police instructions carefully when encountered. First, if it's safe to do so, run to safety. Determine your route quickly before starting to move and leave behind any belongings not already on you. If possible, help others evacuate with you. If running isn't an option, hide. Lock the doors, silence devices, and stay out of sight. If possible, block the doors with desks and chairs or any other furniture that you can quietly move. As a last resort, fight aggressively to protect yourself. Throw items and improvise weapons, make a commotion, and fully commit to your actions. But please know, you should never attempt to confront a shooter unless your life is in immediate danger and there are no safe evacuation routes or hiding places. Your safety is paramount, so know how to respond decisively and quickly. When the response teams arrive on site, they will first respond to the immediate threat of the active shooter before rescue or first aid begins. Police will be outfitted in tactical equipment and carry high-powered firearms. Upon their arrival, officers will proceed directly to the shooter's last known location and not stop to tend to wounded individuals. Next, emergency medical personnel and additional law enforcement will move in to treat and remove wounded individuals from the scene. They may enlist capable individuals at the scene to help move the wounded to a safe location. If you encounter police officers, officers may shout at or push individuals to make sure they are out of harm's way. Keep calm and obey any instructions they may give you. Put down any items you might be carrying and raise your hands, spread your fingers apart. Keep your hands visible at all times. Do not make any sudden or quick movements in the direction of the officers and avoid screaming, yelling, or pointing. Continue in the direction from which the officers are coming from. Do not stop them for help. Slips, trips, and falls. Slips, trips, and falls are among the most common workplace hazards. These accidents are influenced by friction, momentum, and gravity. These incidents cause nearly 700 fatalities per year, along with many more injuries. Let's zoom in to the three causes: friction, momentum, and gravity. Slips are a loss of balance caused by too little friction between your feet and the surface you are walking or working on. Oftentimes, slips happen on wet floors or ice outside. Remember, it's imperative that we always use wet floor signs when necessary. What could have been done to prevent this slip? That's right. Salting icy walkways around the property will help keep guests and team members safe from slips during wintry weather. Trips occur whenever your foot hits an object and you are moving with enough momentum to be thrown off balance. Be cautious walking on uneven walkways or stairs. Good housekeeping is especially important to prevent trips in messy areas. In this video, the man walking trips over his own feet. We must always ensure we are attentive to our own movements. Falls occur whenever you move too far off of your center of balance. Improper use of ladders or step stools can often be a cause of falls. Make sure you always maintain 3 points of contact when using a ladder. In this video, the skateboarder loses his center of balance and falls backward. This can cause serious injuries. Although you might not be skateboarding at your property, this is a great representation of what happens when you lose your balance and it results in a fall. It's important to be able to recognize hazards that could produce a slip, trip, or fall. Some hazards can be addressed immediately, such as cleaning up a spill and placing a wet floor sign out, keeping walkways tidy, and decluttering or removing obstacles. Other hazards, like uneven walkways, poor lighting, or unsecure rugs, can be reported to leadership when necessary. Any team member is empowered to report unsafe conditions that could result in accidents and/or injuries. When it comes to housekeeping, it's important to note that obstacles and clutter are a major cause of trips. When focusing on keeping the workplace tidy, we should always keep walkways and aisles clear, keep carts out of walking paths, remove obstacles and anything that is not necessary, do not allow clutter or trash to accumulate, and keep cords neat and away from areas where people may step. Storage can also present hazards when it comes to slips, trips, and falls. Make sure you store equipment and materials properly when not in use, secure items so they will not fall, and keep storage areas clean and free of clutter. Fire prevention. Fire prevention begins with recognizing hazards. Ensure that all flammable materials are labeled properly and disposed of safely. Regular maintenance, especially of gas appliances, is crucial for safety. When a fire alarm sounds, treat it as a real emergency. Guide others calmly to the exits, never use elevators, and always follow posted emergency exit routes. Fire prevention is critical to maintaining a safe working environment. Safe cleanup practices include using flammable storage containers. All flammables and combustibles are identifiable by the labeling, and ensuring that doused rags with flammable chemicals or compounds are disposed of properly. Regular maintenance of equipment will also aid in the prevention of fire emergencies. Always ensure that gas appliances are regularly checked for potential leaks on supply lines and connections. Kitchen equipment must be maintained and cleaned regularly to prevent grease buildup. And ensure that fire extinguishers are checked regularly by a third party. Another important component to fire prevention and preparedness is communication. Some general touch points include: emergency exit placards must be posted on the interior of all guest rooms. Exit plans should be posted for team members in the break rooms or common areas. and discuss with your supervisor what your role and plan is in case of a fire emergency requiring evacuation. Having a plan in case of an emergency is critical for efficient evacuations. Each leader is responsible for accounting for their team. Communicate between meeting points to determine who might still be in the building. As a reminder, you should never return into the building during a fire emergency. Communicate to first responders if there is someone still inside. If the alarm sounds, always assume a true emergency situation is present. When you hear the alarms sound, stop what you are doing and move toward the nearest exit route immediately. Instruct fellow team members and guests to exit the building, and do not use elevators. As a reminder, all non-exiting doors and stairwells must be easily identifiable and egress exits must be clearly marked. Safe lifting. Did you know that injury caused by improper lifting or other awkward postures is the #1 workplace safety issue? Check out these stats. Back injuries account for 20% of all injuries and illnesses in the workplace. Improper lifting can lead to cumulative trauma, which is the damage caused by repetitive stress on muscles over time. Cumulative trauma causes 31% of all workplace injuries and 43% of all workplace injury claims. To better understand the risks, consider that for every 10,000 instances of improper lifting technique, there will be approximately 1,000 instances of back pain, 100 injuries requiring medical attention, 10 injuries resulting in lost time from work, and a single permanent disability. Preparing for lifting safely is just as important as the lift itself. Some best practices before lifting are always maintain good physical health, stretch often, wear proper footwear, and consider the proper technique and whether you can lift alone or if you need support from another person or equipment. When you lift, protect your back with neutral posture. Align your ears, shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles. Use your legs, not your back, to lift and minimize bending at the waist. Remember, when lifting, it's important to keep your posture neutral, lift with your legs, and minimize bending at the waist as much as possible. Lockout, tagout, and electrical safety. Lockout, tagout is a safety procedure that prevents team members from being unintentionally exposed to hazardous energy from equipment and machinery. It involves using a lockout device, like a padlock, to secure an energy isolating device, and a tagout device, like a tag, to warn team members not to use the equipment. Let's take a look at the lockout tagout steps. First, prepare for the shutdown. Next, shut down the equipment. Then, isolate energy sources. Next, apply locks and tags, then control residual energy. Lastly, verify energy control methods. There are two types of lockout tagout team members: authorized and affected. Authorized team members are the only ones who can participate in lockout tagout procedures. These team members receive specialized training on how to perform the lockout tagout procedure. Affected team members work in the same area but are not authorized to participate. These team members are trained to recognize these procedures and not to interfere with them. Most of our OHM team members would be considered affected team members. During a normal production process, various forms of energy allow machines to operate. This energy poses minimal hazard as long as the equipment is functioning properly and workers are following best work practices. But during service and maintenance activities, these same energy sources become hazardous. This is because tasks such as adjusting, retooling, repairing, unjamming, Cleaning and lubricating machinery often require a worker to access areas it would be dangerous to go near if the machine was running. Effective lockout-tagout procedures that control these energy sources are critical to safety. Cuts and burns. Cuts and burns are common in our industry, but also preventable. Always use personal protective equipment when necessary, along with safe knife handling practices to prevent cuts and burns from happening to you. Whether you're a seasoned chef or working your first job in a kitchen, follow these basic guidelines to avoid common injuries. Let's review some knife safety tips. Keep knives sharp. A sharp knife is safer than a dull one. When cutting, tuck your fingers on the hand holding the food and wear a protective glove. Always use a cutting board. Pro tip, place a damp cloth underneath the board to prevent it from slipping. Use the appropriate knife for the job. Never substitute a knife for other tools. Store knives in a knife block or rack. Never loose in a drawer or left in soapy water. Next, let's review some burn prevention tips. Adjust the burner flame so it covers only the bottom portion of the pan. Clean the grill and stove surfaces regularly to prevent grease buildup. Wait for oil to cool before straining or carrying it. Use pot holders, gloves, or oven mitts when handling hot objects. Hazard communication and chemical safety. Hazard communication, or HazCom, ensures that team members are informed about the chemicals they work with, their potential hazards, and how to handle them safely. In hospitality, this includes cleaning agents, disinfectants, and other substances used in daily operations. When hazardous materials are transferred from their original containers into secondary containers that will be left unattended, these must also be labeled with the contents and hazards. Regardless of the contents of the secondary bottle, it could even be water. All bottles must be labeled. There are no exceptions to this rule. Being familiar with pictogram identification will help us to have more awareness when it comes to working around hazardous chemicals. Let's take a look at the various types of hazard. Corrosion. Corrosive chemicals can cause skin corrosion and eye damage, and also be corrosive to metals. Explosives include explosive chemicals, self-reactives, and organic peroxide. Flammables are extremely flammable on contact with sparks, flame, or heat. Gases under pressure means this container may explode if heated. Additionally, very cold liquid inside may cause frostbite. Oxidizers may cause or intensify fire and increase the overall risk of fire. Acute toxicity means life-threatening, even in small amounts and with short exposure. Health hazard. These chemicals may cause very serious long-term health damage. Environmental hazard. These chemicals are toxic to aquatic life and have a very long-term harmful effect on the ecosystem. And lastly, irritant. These chemicals can cause skin and eye irritation, be harmful to your health, and harmful to the ozone layer. A safety data sheet, or an SDS, is a document that provides information about the health and safety of a hazardous substance or chemical. Safety data sheets are prepared by the manufacturer or importer of the substance. Some main highlights of information included within a safety data sheet are chemical properties, physical health and environmental health hazards, protective measures, and safety precautions for handling, storing, and transporting the chemical. SDS binders are available at all properties and should maintain current information on all chemicals used within a department or at an entire property. If you have any questions about where these binders are located or the chemicals used in your role, please reach out to your supervisor for additional information. Bloodborne pathogens. Bloodborne pathogens are disease-causing microorganisms in blood, bodily fluids, and tissues that cause life-threatening diseases in humans. Bloodborne pathogens can be viral, such as hepatitis B or C, bacterial, such as tuberculosis, or fungal, such as thrush. When it comes to transmission, an infection can be spread if bodily fluids from one person make contact with another person's broken skin. Blood products, and blood-contaminated objects are the most likely contaminated products of bloodborne pathogens. Possible encounters could include an injured guest or team member, or bodily fluids in a guest room. Universal precautions are a set of steps that everyone should take as a collaborative approach to infection control. Some of the most important universal precautions when it comes to bloodborne pathogens include 1. Treat all human blood as if it is contaminated. 2. Treat all materials with human blood as if they are contaminated. 3. Minimize handling and manipulation of contaminated materials. 4. Utilize sharps containers and handle sharps carefully. And 5. Wash your hands regularly to prevent transmission of bloodborne pathogens. By following these universal precautions, along with the rest of our OHM safety standards, will help ensure team member safety while at work and prevent illness and injury. Personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, is clothing or equipment that protects the wearer from injury or infection. It's used to minimize exposure to hazards that can cause serious illnesses or injuries, such as chemical, radiological, physical, electrical, or mechanical hazards. Some examples of PPE that we may use at our OHM properties are non-slip shoes, safety glasses, gloves, and hard hats or fall protection. A hazard assessment is a systematic process used to identify, evaluate, and manage potential health and safety risks in a workplace or environment by identifying hazards, analyzing their severity, and recommending appropriate control measures to mitigate those risks. Essentially, it's a method to proactively identify and address potential dangers before they occur. Hazard assessments for the OHM portfolio are available on the Safety SharePoint site. Each business type is broken down by department and has hazards documented as well as required PPE. In this example, we are looking at the housekeeping department in a hotel. Hazards may include cuts or penetration from broken glass, which requires cut-resistant gloves to handle the glass. Chemical hazards would be present through cleaning surfaces by hand, which requires synthetic or vinyl gloves to be worn. And finally, slip and fall hazards are present when floor surfaces are wet, possibly during cleaning, which requires slip-resistant footwear. If you have any questions regarding where to find hazard assessments or what personal protective equipment is required for your role based on task, reach out to your supervisor for additional information. The Emergency Action Plan contains the procedures designed to protect both team members and guests while minimizing damage to property and equipment, provide the continuity of mission-critical application systems and availability of critical data, and enable the resumption of business operations in the event of a property emergency. When it comes to general preparedness, the Emergency Action Plan will include things like emergency contact information, evacuation procedures, emergency response team roles, and communication protocol. At OHM, we value safety, which is why we require at least one person per shift be CPR certified at every property. If you are already CPR certified or are interested in being part of the property emergency response team in the future, talk to your supervisor. The Emergency Action Plan will review specific hazards that could occur. Keep in mind, some of these are more likely than others. However, we always want to be vigilant and prepared for anything. The Emergency Action Plan will review designated assembly points and exit routes. Since each property is different, please talk through this information on site with your supervisor and ask questions if you are unsure about anything. In the Emergency Action Plan, you will find information on incident reporting and documentation, business continuity, and staff debriefing. The proper contacts list, located in the Emergency Action Plan binder, will include all relevant contacts for the property that you're at. Whether you need to get a hold of a property leader, someone at the hub, emergency services, or one of your vendors, you can find that information on this sheet. Each property is required to keep this sheet updated and will review it quarterly. But if you ever notice it's outdated, let your supervisor know so they can make the proper updates. Effective public relations, or PR, and media handling are crucial during emergencies to ensure clear communication, maintain the organization's reputation, and provide accurate information to the public. Team members or property leaders should not speak to the media on OHM's behalf. All requests for comment, media information, or questions during or following an emergency event should be directed to hub leaders or your regional director of operations. That concludes our safety compliance training video. You've now experienced awareness level training in active shooter, slips, trips, and falls, fire prevention, safe lifting, lockout, tagout, and electrical safety, cuts and burns, hazard communication and chemical safety, bloodborne pathogens, personal protective equipment, and our OHM Emergency Action Plan. If you have questions or would like more information on any of the topics covered today, please reach out to your supervisor for more information. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, OHM friends.